Hey everybody, it's Monday, March 10th, 2014. My name is Wes Hagen. I'm the vineyard manager and winemaker at Clos Pepe Vineyards and Clos Pepe Estate Wines. I want to talk to you a little bit about 2013 vintage, what happened, and how the wines are coming along in barrel, so we can sort of look back at last year's videos and see how everything we did last year actually affected the vintage. I think you could define 2013 as a fairly warm early vintage and slightly warmer summer than we're used to. I believe it was July and May and June, May, June, July, that were quite warm. And everyone was getting ready for the early harvest. And so as a result, when we finally got to August, and August became extraordinarily cool, with temperatures rarely going over about 70 degrees, we really had an opportunity to extend the hang time, extend the season, and really make some special wines. So even though we thought it was going to be a slightly early year, we had that nice cool August, which gave us the long hang time, so we went into September and October, harvested sparkling wine early September, a lot of our wine between mid-September and early October, and brought in a little bit of wine in mostly Chardonnay in mid-October. So let's run through the estate wines real quick. This is the 2013 Homage to Chablis Chardonnay, stainless steel, press the juice, dirty to barrel, ferment it, let it ferment. At the end of fermentation, rack it off, put the clean wine back in stainless steel where it stays, where we stir those fine lees about every 2 weeks, and really allow the wine to mature in that stainless steel cask, 55 gallons, for 11 months. Big saline aroma. These wines have a little bit of brown butter, a little bit of richness. You can smell sort of that sort of rich, broad style of Chardonnay in the nose, but I know from previous vintages that it's going to probably just have wonderful kind of smoking, laser-like acidity, which is really one of the hallmarks of the Homage. Saline, stone fruits, pear, apple, a little bit of tropicality left in it. It's really showing a lot of pretty early integration. The acidity is still a little bit green apple-y. It's probably about 80% through malolactic, but it's got a beautiful minerality that kind of covers the wine. Generally, I find at Clos Pepe, kind of a secret I've never really told before, Chardonnays have very little vintage variation, while Pinot Noirs have a great amount of vintage variation. Chardonnays at Clos Pepe seem to be pretty standard year in and year out. The flavor profile is usually about the same. Salinity, stone fruit, apple, pear, really beautiful sort of slight brown butter aroma, hazelnuts, and a little bit of vanilla. And then as the wine ages, it gains a little bit of baby fat, while the Pinot Noirs really can be very light, elegant, cherry-like, in very cool vintages, almost Santa Maria-like. And then when you get a big, rich vintage, a ripe vintage, they get much darker, richer, masculine, blackberry, blueberry, bramble, loamy earth. But I don't think it's going to be that elegant of a vintage like 08 or 06. I think it's going to be closer to a 7, 9, 11, which I'm really excited about because those are some of my favorite vintages. So Chardonnay Homage to Chablis, right on schedule, mineral, broadening, showing quite a bit of deliciousness. Very happy with the level of about, probably 13.8, 13.9 alcohol. It's about 3.2 pH and about 8.5 grams of acid. Very structured, high acid. It's going to be exactly what we're trying to do with the Homage program. So same juice put in a brand new Demi barrel. So this is a brand new French oak barrel from Merceau, from the Demi producer. So there's a lot more sort of what I would call high-toned, really nice toasted oak aroma in this wine. Definitely get the wood. The minerality and the salinity are still kind of poking through, but it's more an essence of the oak treatment and the affectation of this wine. This will be blended, 2 new barrels will be blended with another 8 or 9 neutral barrels. So this will only be about 20, about 10% new oak in this vintage. And here's an issue, because there's enough oak in this wine. It's 100% new French wood. This isn't really a great wine to drink to talk about vintage. It's more wine to drink to see how the oak is influencing the vintage, not how the vintage is being influenced by the oak. So I would say the Homage to Chablis tells me much more than the barrel fermented Chardonnay, because the Homage is basically naked, unprotected by the oak, and the oak is wrapping around the Chardonnay barrel fermented so much right now. It's really difficult to taste much more than the oak, so it's kind of an over-oaked wine right now, but when it's put in as 10% of the barrel fermented, it'll just give it a beautiful little hug of beautiful Merceau French oak that will be beautiful. So a little mineral, a little more sort of affectation and that bright and rich oak flavor kind of covering the wine. Then I chose a neutral barrel of Pommard Clone 4 Pinot Noir. You can see, if I show you kind of the wine behind, a little bit of a white background. You can see just how saturated the color is in 2013. Dark, rich, almost Syrah-like color, which we get from that intensely small berries from high calcium content and very poor soil. And one of the longest, coolest growing seasons on the planet. You don't get color out of Pinot Noir from heat. You get color out of long, cool growing hang time. So you'll never really, it'll be very difficult to ever see a wine that was not manipulated, like of this color coming out of Oregon or Burgundy. They just don't really have the berry size and the lack of vigor that we have. And I'm not saying it's better because it's darker. I'm just saying it shows more of this color because of the physiological and the environmental influences on the vine. Still pretty pressy. Like I noticed last year the wines weren't pressy. When I mean pressy, it smells like the wine's coming out of the press. Has a little bit of a green aroma like cut flowers, but then it has the big, rich raspberry, blueberry, blackberry, baking spice, a little bit of hibiscus and candied orange peel. All these things are coming out in the wine. You know, when I say a reference, does it matter? Well, I'm known for saying references don't matter in wine, but I think they do matter when the wine is young and you're watching it evolve. We're practicing wine, we're defining the wine now, so as we watch what happens in the cellar, we don't have any surprises. So I expect that little green edge to the wine to sublimate. The wine's going to become much more balanced, much more restrained as it finishes malolactic. It'll lose a little bit of its overt aroma and primary fruit and bring a little bit more of that earthy, loamy elegance to the mid-palate and the finish. So right now it's got a beginning, middle, and an end. Like a good first draft of a novel, and we'll just shut it in a drawer and open it up in a couple years, and it'll rewrite itself with amazing complex subplots, little twists and turns. That's the greatest thing about Pinot Noir. For a guy who trained as a novelist, it rewrites itself in the second, third, and fourth version. So I love that about it. It's dry, it's fruity, it's plush, it's delicious. A little bit of earth popping out of that huge big primary fruit in the mouth. Probably a little bit more full force than 9 or 11 it was in barrel, but it also has beautiful gaps like proper jazz. You know, the canvas of jazz is silence, and I think great Pinot Noir also has a sense of silence with the complexity emerging. So right now, pretty big, pretty fruity, but also shows this really nice structure in the mid palate and the back of earthiness, structure, acidity that makes this wine. Will probably be another vintage that'll show very nice and fruity when it's young and probably be very, very complex, 7 to 12 years in the bottle is what we're really hoping that these wines age gracefully. So that's the estate wines, and then some of you know Ballard Canyon got its AVA last year. I made a Grenache Syrah this year in a different style. Axis Mundi is really usually between a rosé and a red wine, very light and elegant, but we did a 2013 Mourvèdre rosé, so I don't need another rosé. So this year we made it more Chateauneuf style, rich, a little richer, a little riper, a little bigger. You can see the color's nice, although the color probably isn't as saturated as the Pinot Noir, which is odd to say for a Syrah and Grenache, but it's true the Pinot Noir, Clos Pepe usually is darker than our Syrah Grenache. Really pretty floral aromatics, a little bit of sublimating tar on top of all the grapey, vinous, blackberry jam kind of dusty aromas. It's already fairly complex, already has more of a sense of a red wine than our previous Axis Mundis from the Sarlus Vineyard, Windmill Vineyard at the top of Ballard Canyon. Dry, fruity, balanced. This wine's probably damn close to finishing mallow because it's already got a harmony and a completeness that that the other wines, well, I think the Homage and the Axis are showing sort of more completeness. The Axis, though, is definitely going to be more sort of a stew red meat wine than more of that kind of bright, fruity rosé than it's been in the past. I think Ballard Canyon is looking for an extraordinary year. If this is any indication of what I'm used to, I think you can look at the Syrahs, Grenaches, the reds, and the whites coming out of Ballard Canyon in 2013 to show some amazing character, a little more depth, a little more richness, a little more color. Very, very nice wines. I like that quite a bit. The Pinot Noir is a little more unevolved. It's taking its time a little more and it's showing a little less evolution in barrel. But I think we can say about 2013 that nice warm summer